we are in week 3 of our book study around the empowerment dynamic by David Emerald. And this week we're focusing on passion and vision. Right? It's not what you have, it's actually who you are. That's the whole point of the empowerment dynamic, ultimately, is to anchor us in who we truly are. And so, brief overview. So if you're coming in new, we're going to give a brief overview so you won't be completely lost. If you want to know more about what I'm talking about around the drama triangle, etc., if you watch the last 3 talks, and they progressively, right, we've been moving through the book. So the book is based on Stephen Cartman's model from the 1960s that is called the drama triangle. And David Emerald added the dreaded in front of it so that the acronym for it is DDT. Because it is poisonous to your relationships the way DDT is poisonous to the earth. And if you'll notice, we got the victim sitting on the bottom of the triangle, and everything is oriented in the drama triangle around the victim. The victim needs a persecutor, somebody who's doing something to them. The victim is desperate for a rescuer. A rescuer is desperate for a victim. Persecutors are desperate for victims, because they need somebody to blame. They need somebody to be at fault. And we play all of those roles. Whichever one makes you the most uncomfortable, you probably play that one the most and you don't even know it. But we play all of those roles in our life. And so part of the empowerment dynamic is about shifting that dynamic out of victim, persecutor, rescuer into what he calls the creator orientation, and I'm going to call that vision oriented, right? We're being vision oriented. Dreaded drama triangle is very problem oriented. There's always a problem. When we step into the creator consciousness, we are vision oriented. And notice how literally the triangle gets flipped. So now the creator is on the top. And off of that, you can become a coach or you can become a challenger. And so the dynamics of the triangle are similar, and yet they're actually healthy. They're actually anchored in an understanding of the truth of who we actually are. And we also play all of these roles. We can be a challenger, we can be a coach, we can be a creator. They're all oriented around this vision idea. And I've been sharing how in Unity we have this understanding of how consciousness evolves. And we understand in Unity that we have the victim consciousness where things happen to me, just like we have the victim in the drama triangle. We have the victor, which is very American. I'm gonna make it happen. I'm gonna do that, right? Everything's gonna happen by me. By golly, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You can get that done if you just work hard enough. That's the victor concept. And the victor and the victim flip back and forth because victors don't want to be victims. And victims, when they try to feel powerful, if they're not anchored in faith, but they're still anchored in fear, they think that they personally have to do everything. Can anybody in here relate to that? Whew. Right? How exhausting that is. So victor-victim are like persecutor-victim. They mirror each other. And they're both fear-based understandings of the world. They're problem-focused. They're fear-oriented. And then as we continue to evolve in consciousness, we can move into what we call channel consciousness. And this is an understanding that it's not little me, little personality me that's doing something, but there's a larger context. And that I am a channel, a conduit for something that is much larger than just my personality. So I'm no longer feeling separate and alone in channel consciousness. There's an awareness of presence, of spirit, something larger. And this is where we begin to move into faith-based orientation. And then we have the Christ-Buddha consciousness, and that's where it's just as me. There is no separation at all. It's not that something's moving through me, like Eric Butterworth calls it, it's not like a raisin in the bun, right? It's that we are the whole of it all. We're not just a conduit, a human conduit for something else. We are actually the thing itself, and that is as me. And when we move into that consciousness, we're very faith-based, we're very vision-based. Now, you'll notice in the picture they nest, and that's because even when we manage to stand in our channel consciousness, our I amness, all it takes is one moment of stress, and what happens? Whoop, we collapse right back down into victim consciousness. We can't, because it's still available to us. Victim consciousness is available to us as a choice. But at the same time that victim consciousness is available to us as a choice, guess what? I am consciousness is also available to us as a choice. That's what our practice is about, to build up the capacity to be able to stay anchored in something that isn't fear-oriented. So he talks about FISB, and FISB meaning that we have what we place our focus on, and this is also very unity. We would say in unity, what we place our attention on grows in consciousness. So what he's saying is what we focus on creates an inner state. And that inner state decides our behavior. So if we are focused on a problem, then what inner state gets created is usually anxiety and worry. And then that anxiety and worry decides our behavior. And that behavior is connected into our anxiety and worry. So it puts us on what he calls the roller coaster, which is that we start off with some sort of problem, and we're reacting to the problem through our worry and our anxiety, and then the problem starts to go away because the behavior is successful. And then once the stress is no longer there, the worry and anxiety goes away, and what happens to the behavior? It goes away too. So we relax, and then all of a sudden we find ourselves back at the same problem again. And we react again, and that brings us to a place where the problem is alleviated, and then we relax, and shoop. And I shared my journey with my weight around that, right? You watch what you eat, you exercise, you start to see a difference, you're feeling better in your body, you start to relax. And when you relax, what do you say? Oh, I'll just have an extra glass of wine, it'll be fine. Oh, let me just have a little bit more of that dark chocolate, because, a little bit's not going to hurt me. And as we start to relax, all of a sudden we find ourselves back in the problem. And so we get caught on a roller coaster. So when we are in vision orientation or creator orientation, what we are placing our focus on is the vision, not the problem. So we're no longer focused on what we don't want. We're actually focused on what we do want. And that creates passion and inspiration, which then allows us to make very concrete baby steps towards fulfilling the vision. And as we fulfill the vision more, that feeds our passion and inspiration more, which allows us to take a couple more baby steps, which feeds, can you feel how that's a regenerative cycle? And so what it looks like over time is more like this. So rather than the roller coaster, where you don't really go anywhere, what you get is you're still going to have highs and lows, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, right? You're still going to have highs and lows, but the overall trajectory is that there is continuous transformation and change. That is the direction that we feel ourselves moving towards. So all of that was review. So here we are with where we are in this week, right? And he's talking about dynamic tension. I brought a prop, right? He's talking about dynamic tension. So it's the tension between what is, which is this hand here, and what the vision is, right? And what the vision is. And that tension is what I would call life. I would call this life itself, that dynamic tension. But so many of us are uncomfortable with tension. So many of us are uncomfortable with that because it requires something of us. I have to actually sort of hold this, right? It requires muscle. It requires something within myself. And so in order to relieve that tension, what most people do is let go of the vision. And then here we still are. And we have not moved. And then we get the vision. And then we get the vision. And we let go. and we are never actually moving. How many people in here have had a vision, had a dream for something, and it just never actually materialized? Okay. So this is that dynamic tension makes us very, very, very uncomfortable. So what you're being invited into with this idea of baby steps is that the vision's calling us forward, and instead of staying where you are, you take a baby step. And then the vision calls you forward even more, and you take another baby step. And ultimately, the dynamic tension just shifts slightly. There's a slight shift. As you take the baby steps, there's a little bit of release, but then that vision's going to pull you forward again. It always does. The reason why it does is because we are infinite beings having an infinite experience. The vision that I had when I was in my 20s for my life, is that the same vision that I have for my life now? Not even close. So if you can take that and narrow that down, the vision that you had for yourself last year is not the same vision that you have for yourself today. Your vision is constantly growing and expanding because it is responding to your capacity to live into your vision more fully. The more you're able to show up in the vision, the bigger the vision will actually become. That's the truth of how this dynamic tension works. So, what are you choosing? Are you choosing the absence of tension, or are you choosing the presence of creativity and life? Which one are you choosing? That's what we're being invited to sit with within ourselves, because that dynamic tension is not always very comfortable, especially when we feel that vision really pulling us. That causes something to get triggered within us. Because remember, our ego is attached to the status quo. Our ego is comfortable with the status quo, even if we're miserable. Our ego is attached to the status quo because we know it. It's familiar. There's no surprises. Our misery is not a surprise. So, Isaiah, it's one of my favorite quotes, where there is no vision, the people perish. When you are cutting yourself off from your vision, you are stagnating. You are saying there is no such thing as life. But life is a power. We believe that in Unity. It is moving through you. It is you. So the invitation is to step into it. So creators resolve tension by taking baby steps to move from current reality towards their vision. And those baby steps do three things. They allow for incremental progress. They allow for a backward step, which I'm going to talk about in just a second. And they also allow for a quantum leap forward. So remember this chart where I said there was like dips, but it's all still on the upward trajectory? Those dips are the places where you took a baby step and went, oh, that's not what I want to do. The places where you feel like you failed, the places where you feel like you made a mistake, the places where things went totally sideways. That's part of the process. You can't move forward without making missteps. It's part of our learning process. So when those steps that feel like they're taking us downward, a backward step, they feel like we're stepping backward, what they're actually doing is allowing us to learn what it is that we actually truly want to step into. They become a process of discernment, not a way to beat yourself up. And the more you begin to trust that, you see that there's that quantum leap. You can see one of the things is a big thing. There's a quantum, every once in a while, you're taking these baby steps, and I know you've experienced this. You're taking baby step, and all of a sudden you're like, whoa, I'm in a whole new world right now. That's that quantum leap that we are absolutely capable of. But it's like we have to build the muscle in order to meet ourselves in the vision, if that makes any sense. Take baby steps. We're building the capacity. And then all of a sudden we can step into it fully with more ease and more grace. So David Emerald describes the dynamic tension three-step process as a three-step process. That's what do you want? Your vision, the outcome. What do you have now? What's your current reality? those two polarities on the band. And what's next? What's the baby step that's going to move you closer to the vision? Now, I am going to add a spiritual lens to what David Emerald is sharing. Is the vision arising from your ego, or is it arising from your divine nature? Because oftentimes when we hear, what do I want? What our wants are very much focused in what our ego thinks that we should have. The invitation is to not get into an idea of vision from our ego, our personality that is attached to what we have, but to actually anchor in the vision from our divine, that I would call it the divine idea of your life. And that is who you actually are. And it's who you are right now. You're just not understanding how to reveal it all fully yet. It is all there. It just needs to be revealed. I was sharing in the prayer workshop yesterday that Michelangelo said that David was always in the marble. Your divinity is you. And then our spiritual work is to just chip away at the marble, the things that we think we are, so that the Christ Buddha-ness that you are can make itself known, so that you can arise from this shell of societal expectations, cultural expectations, what we've been told we're supposed to want or desire, how we're supposed to be in the world, how we're supposed to behave in the world. Do this, don't do that. Carolyn thinking she can't wear sneakers on platform. Right? But she can wear sneakers. She wore sneakers on. Did anybody die because Carolyn wore sneakers on platform? Right? So all these expectations that we create for ourselves, that's all stuff that's getting in the way of our divine identity. Does the divine idea of Carolyn, and I'm sorry to put you on the spot here, Carolyn, does the divine idea of Carolyn's life care what kind of footwear she's wearing? No, right? What it does care about is she comfortable. What it does care about is she living into her health and vitality. So I would say, wear the sneakers, because that's part of her divine vision living itself out in time and in space. And that's what we continually get invited into. Our victim voice yells. Our creator voice whispers. Right? So, which voice are you listening to? Which voice are you listening to? Is it all focused on the ego, your personality? Or are you accessing something that is actually greater and deeper? Deeper, the truth of who you are. So, Reverend Michael Beckwith founded Agape International Spiritual Center in LA on this process called the life visioning process. And literally it was him and 12 practitioners, and they got together and they started visioning. They wanted the God idea for the spiritual community they wanted to build. Not their idea, not their preferences, not their personal understanding. They wanted to catch the God idea. What was that going to look like? What was that going to feel like? How was that going to show up? And this life visioning process is part of what Agape does for everything. You start a new project, everybody visions together. And we don't stop visioning. You keep visioning. You vision every month. My class, my practitioner class, we had a project. We visioned weekly for 6 months to catch the divine idea of what it was that was supposed to show up for us, how we were being invited to show up into this project. So the life visioning process moves us out of ego and moves us into the intuitive understanding of our divine nature. It allows us to access our inner creativity. It allows us to access actually the larger awareness of who we are. So the questions that we ask in the life visioning process are, what is the divine vision of my life? Just asking that question, can you feel how that opens up something? Not my idea, the divine idea. And then it gets really clear. You want to talk about baby steps? Here they are. What must I become to manifest this vision? If I catch a vision of myself in a relationship, loving, caring relationship, and I happen to be single at the moment, What do I have to become in order for that vision to actually show up in time and space? And that's what you listen for. What do I need to become? Because it's going to be different for each one of us. And then, what must I release to manifest this vision? What do I have to be willing to let go of that I'm so fixated on in order to be able to take those baby steps? And then, I love this last question. What talents and gifts do I already have? You already have everything that you need. Are you accessing all of your gifts and talents right now? Are you allowing yourself to show up in the fullness of the vision that you truly are? How are you shortchanging yourself from what is actually possible? And this is how you can begin to take baby steps that are grounded not in an ego understanding of vision, but in the true understanding of vision. And I'll talk more about this next week, but I, at one point, caught a vision of myself wearing ministerial robes. And we look at me now and we're like, well, yeah, duh. I literally thought I was going to play one on TV. That's what I thought, because my ego was so attached to what I thought my life was going to look like, because I was a professional actor, that even when I saw myself as a minister, my ego interfered and said, oh, no, it's not that. That's too far away from who you are. Like, when would that actually ever happen? You're going to play one on television. It always makes me laugh. Makes me laugh. Because that vision was clear as a bell, and I fought it. For years, I fought it until I realized that what I was so fixated on, that I needed to take those baby steps. I needed to trust the vision that was unfolding as my life, not think that I knew what that was. And as I did that, I mean, I'm telling you, my life is pretty amazing right now. But it's because I stopped fighting. It's because I stopped being so fixated on what I thought it was supposed to be, that I was able to allow something to actually show up for me organically. Michael Beckwith says, you can't have anything in life that you're not willing to become in consciousness. Really breathe that in. Whatever it is that you want in life, you have to become it. You want more peaceful relationships? You have to become it. You want more love and connection? You have to become it. You want more abundance? You have to become it. That's what we're being invited into. Saying yes to the vision of what we're being called towards. Remember, we're moving from fear-based to faith-based. We're moving from problem-focused to vision-focused. And when we talk about vision, we're not talking about personal preferences. We're talking about the largest idea of what your life is that you're not actually accessing right now. Spaciousness, that's what you're being invited into. Making space for transformation to happen. Not having it so locked in and so decided and so figured out. So the victor, by me, thinks that they have to make everything happen. But when we're operating in channel and we're operating in the Christ Buddha consciousness, we are making it welcome. We are creating a space for the truth of who we are to arise, to be heard, to be honored, to be acted upon. We are the hands, the feet, the voice of God. The divine vision of your life is God. But it has to show up through you in time and in space. That's how it works. Lao Tzu says, when I let go of what I am, I become what I might be. The letting go piece is so huge. We have to let go, not focus on the problems. You can come up with a bazillion reasons why you shouldn't let go. You need to focus on the vision that is calling you forth. So this is how we enter into creator, challenger, and coach. This is how we enter into something where we are actually engaging in life from a place of empowerment rather than powerlessness. And I've been sharing a lot about the challenger. I shared people who are challengers for our planet Earth on Earth Day. I shared our very own Uma Jess Batha, who has been challenging this community to show up with our matching challenge, right? Inviting us to step out of that comfort zone and step into our own ownership and participation for how much we love this community. And now I want to talk a little bit more about coach. Because coach is where we get to show up and support each other with the gifts and talents we have right now. And everybody in this community has a tremendous amount of wisdom, gifts, and talents. And those things inspire us. That's the vision, that's the passion, that's what calls us forth, and that's what's going to enable us as a community to grow and to be larger. Not just in people, but that happens too, but in consciousness, that we are growing and becoming a larger space for possibility to be able to make itself known. So to facilitate this idea of coaches having a space at Unity and Marin to be able to show up, we are going to be launching this summer a community small group series. And this community small group series is going to run for 5 weeks from July 9th through August 6th. And these are just suggestions that are up here. Anything that you have a passion for, anything that you want to share with this community is welcome to be submitted for this series that we're going to be doing. So I've heard a lot about spiritual movie night. So who out here wants to be the coach? So it's going to happen over 5 weeks. It's going to meet once a week for 5 weeks. It's going to be led by community members. You can co-facilitate with somebody if you like. You can do it on your own if you like. The leaders are going to pick the day, time, and location, similar to how we do our book studies. There needs to be some sort of spiritual component that's included, and that could just be an opening prayer. It could be a moment of silence. It could be a spiritual check-in. It could be more invested in that if you want. It's going to be listed on Meetup. The idea is to use these small groups to also attract new people to come on in. And if the group is really excited about what is happening, then it absolutely can become an ongoing group. It can be something that meets monthly or meets quarterly or meets whenever people want it to meet. The person who is putting the idea forward is only committing for 5 weeks. Okay? So the person who's putting the idea forward is only committing for 5 weeks. But if there's legs to it, other people might step in or show up or coordinate, right? The deadline to submit is May 21st. We are looking for 12 small groups. We're going to curate this because we want to make sure that we have groups that cover as much variety as possible. Like we don't want to end up with 3 hiking groups, right? We want to have as much variety as possible. We want as many days of the week to be covered by the groups. And we also want them to be both in person and virtual, because we haven't forgotten about you, our virtual community. So we're looking for a combination of those pieces. So we're looking for 12 of them. So you make your submissions. There's you can do it online on PCO. And you can also see Sarah and Cindy. Can you guys stand up? Can we give them both some love? Because they have graciously stepped forward to actually lead and be the coordinators for this small group series. Is this exciting? Because this is how we get to show up in the creator model for and with each other. The invitation is to be the coach, be the facilitator. What is it that you already have and that you do, that you can share with this community, and that we can do things together in a really cool environment, right, as a whole group. So let's breathe into that. Let's take this into our time of meditation. I'm going to do next week we're going to do a little bit more of a longer visioning process. But for right now, I'm just going to invite, there's a lot to take in, right? So we're just going to allow ourselves to breathe a little bit. And whatever might have gotten stirred up for you in this dynamic tension, whatever excitement maybe is burbling up as you think about what you might be able to offer to the community, just allowing yourself to get into the very center of your being for a moment. So we're choosing to let the wonderful mind that we love and appreciate take a rest. And we're choosing in this moment to listen to the heart. So we're dropping down beneath the ideas that come very easily. They may be great ideas, but we're interested in the God idea. We're interested in the thing that is going to be a living expression of you living into your vision and facilitating growth and expansion for yourself and for this community and for the world. What is the divine idea for your life right now? What does that feel like? Just try to have an embodied experience of the divine idea for your life. Is there peace? Is there love? Is there joy? Is there fun? Is there laughter? Is there strength? Is there discipline? Is there compassion? Is there gentleness? What is the divine vision of your life right now? And as you open into what that is, the possibility of something more, just listen for what you're being invited to become. What do you need to step into? What do you need to say yes to? What are you being invited towards? And as you sit with what you're becoming, what do you need to let go of? What is weighing you down? That perhaps has been perfect right up until this moment, but in this moment you recognize, I need to release this. Free myself from this so that I can move forward with more ease and more grace. And what do you already have? What are the gifts and talents that are yours right now that you can bring in service to this vision for your life? And how can you translate that into one baby step? What is one small thing? Nothing big, nothing outrageous. One small thing that you can do to move you closer to that vision. So let us rest here and listen for that for a few moments in the silence. How good it is to take the time to be still and listen, to hear past the yelling to the very quiet creator voice. I see and I know that each person here continues to be informed, guided as to what is theirs to do. What one baby step can they take this week that will move them concretely towards the realization of the vision. And in gratitude for this and so much more, for the spiritual understanding that is the foundation of all that I am, that you are, that we are, I do give thanks. And in agreement we say, and so it is. Amen. Our affirmation for today, my spiritual understanding brings clarity to any circumstance. Can we know this together? My spiritual understanding brings clarity to any circumstance. And so it is.